So we know each other really well. Obviously, for those who are watching this podcast, I'm Frances Dodd. I'm the Executive Nurse Director here in NHS Forth Valley, just about to retire.
And I am Karen Goudie. I'm the Director of Nursing in NHS Forth Valley and about to take over from Frances.
The first question that we've got is, why did you want to be a nurse? So I'll ask you that, Karen. Why did you want to be a nurse?
Put me on the spot. When I was 7, my gran had peripheral vascular disease and was in Gartnavel in Glasgow. And I had fond memories of my granda, who never drove, walking me down Byers Road to go and visit my gran, who was in hospital. So long story short, she ended up with bilateral amputations, and I was in absolute awe of the nurses that looked after her. And they wore white dresses, paper hats with stripes. They used to give me the hats to go and make up or do it while we were visiting my gran. And unfortunately, she died at the same age as I am now, which is quite hard to compute actually, because I thought she was an older lady then. But ever since that
clearly not an older lady.
Yeah, clearly not. But ever since that experience, nursing has always intrigued me. I nearly pursued a career in teaching, but ended up continuing the kind of dream to be a nurse.
That's funny, isn't it? Because I also was going to be a primary school teacher, and I was unwell when I was 16. There was a few people, I live in East Kilbride, so there was a few people who had meningitis, and I was number 4 out of 7 who had meningitis, and I was looked after by this nurse, and her name, I've never ever met her to this day. Her name was Nurse O'Neill, and I always remember her, and she was amazing. She looked after me really, really well, and she came in, I'd been delirious, and she came in the next day and she had a big scratch on her arm and a big scratch on her face, and I said, "What happened to you?" And she said, "That was you yesterday." And I had literally, with my delirium, I had literally scarred this poor girl. And she was an amazing nurse. And I came back I was ready to apply for primary school teaching. I came back and said to my mum, "Mum, I'm going to be a nurse." Now, my older sister's a nurse. She's an incredibly nice person, and I thought, maybe I'm not nice enough to be a nurse. But actually, she said, "Oh, right, I thought you were going to be a primary school teacher." "No, I'm going to be a nurse." And I have to say, it's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
Best decision I ever made. I think I'd have been a rubbish primary school teacher.
Me
but
too. No patience.
Aye, exactly. It's funny that we were both going to do the same thing, isn't it? So, thinking about that, who was the most inspirational leader in your nursing career, and what was it about them that inspired you?
She's 4 weeks away from retiring, so it's quite difficult to answer this question. So Frances and I met a good few years ago now. She was on my programme board for excellence in care when I was working for Healthcare Improvement Scotland and Scottish Government. And I remember meeting Frances and just being really struck by her energy in the room and her ability to connect with people and just bring a wee bit of joy and, connection, and very welcoming. While I was terrified in my first big programme board with all these really important people, and it was one of my second big project nationally. So I was really inspired by that in our first kind of meeting. And then an opportunity came up in Lanarkshire Health Board, and I'd been kind of getting to know some of the Lanarkshire leaders through Frances. And I thought, that's somewhere I'd quite like to work. The way they seems to tick all my boxes around values and how we treat each other and people. So I applied for the chief nurse post for Monkland Hospital, and Frances was my boss, and she continued to inspire me in my first couple of years, and then she left me and went to the Scottish Ambulance Service for a period of time, and then the pandemic hit. But we always kept in touch. Yeah. If I needed her, if I was having a difficult, situation at work, or I needed to work through something, she'd be my first person I would call. So the inspirational leader is you. I had worked in Forth Valley previously, like a number of years ago, and it was always a board that was close to my heart. And some things just happened, don't they? I ended up moving into this area, and then an opportunity came up to work with Frances, and I thought, I need to have a go at that, to come back and work for her. But my mum had passed away at the same time, so it was quite a tricky situation to come through a big job interview, but clearly I got the job and I'm here, and it's been an incredible 2 years that we've had together, transforming a place that's close to my heart. I really care about a lot of the people that are still here that I remember from Stirling Royal when I worked there. So it's been quite a journey over the last couple of years just to work together to do what we aim to do, to get things into a better place.
Yeah, and I suppose from my perspective, it's been a tricky one to answer this question around the most inspirational leader, because they've not all been in the nursing family.
Yes.
I've had amazing leaders in lots of different spaces. So probably when I was thinking about it, I thought, is it the clinical support workers that I worked with when I worked in theatres, who were nursing auxiliaries at the time and were real leaders in their space and taught me a huge amount about how to do the job well, how to look after our patients really, really well, really fundamental care, and they were leaders in their space. So probably people like Isabel Baxter and people like that, but probably in more senior leadership positions, I'd say Pauline Howie, who was my chief exec in the ambulance service.
Talk about her, don't you?
So Pauline was the consummate chief executive. She was absolutely professional, held us to account. We were really, really, really well supported. And she said to me, Frances, I know I'm probably not going to have you for very long, but what is it I can do for you? And there were a few things I wanted to get out of being in that job in terms of my development. And then I said to her, what is it you need from me? She said, don't worry, I'll get what I need from you. and I just thought, aye, okay.
You're a bit like that, you've learned that.
I thought that'll be fine. And I trusted Pauline. Yeah. And at difficult times in Forth Valley, there was one time I just didn't really know where to turn, and I turned to Pauline, and she's now my friend, and we go out walking, we go for lunch and things like that. And that's a relationship I never thought I would have with her, but she was truly an inspirational leader in a very challenging time in my career, where my mum had passed away when I was in the ambulance service as well, and she was just amazing. I couldn't have asked for a more personal level of support from a really professional leader. She was amazing. So looking at reflecting throughout your career, what key values and behaviours are important to you, Karen, that brought out the best in the teams that you've led?
I think I've always remained really true to my values, from being a student right through being really junior and not understanding things completely, but always having a real sense and a gut around justice is one of my important ones. Justice for patients that receive our care or our support, and people that receive our support across the communities. Fairness and integrity, respect. But I think the thing that's most important to me is just that term of how we treat each other. I think it's really revealing in terms of how we operate as a team, and role modelling across our senior team, but beyond that, to ensure that I remember a senior leader saying this to me, and she'll know who she is if she ever watches this, that it takes all sorts, Karen. So that diversity of the people that make up our organisation, it's not one size fits all. So I think the way we treat people that are a wee bit, different from the pack is a real indicator of who we are. Yeah. So I think I'll always defend those people. It's always been a thing for me, defend the underdog, make sure that there's fairness and clarity of roles, and ensure that people are being treated well. And I'll always challenge that if I see people that are not being treated well. So. And
you see that in the work, in how you do your how you do your business. Absolutely. But also it doesn't mean to say you can't have difficult and tricky conversations. Indeed. And it's the way that you have those difficult conversations that support people to hear the difficult messages at times, even when it's maybe a bit challenging for them on a professional basis. But actually, when you show you care and when you do it with kindness, but you still deliver the message. Because actually, if you don't deliver the message, you're not kind to them, because you're not giving them the opportunity to grow and develop. So even in the difficult conversations, when you're thinking, the easiest thing to do here would be to say everything's fine, it's having the leadership conviction to say everything's not fine, but you do it in a way that's kind and caring and supportive, and people then take that opportunity, they reflect on it, and they go, actually, somebody's taken the time, they've gone to the effort to guide me further. And I've had loads of people in my career throughout just saying, if you think about it this way, you know, or this is what I noticed, and if you think, you know, about how you might do it slightly differently, and those were the ones that I really listened to by saying, actually, that person bothered to take the time to guide and support me to change, not change my direction completely. And I think one of the things that I think both you and I have done is we've stayed true to who we are. Irrespective of what position you're in. Now, you know, I jokingly say I'm a wee mum and Fiscal bride. Because
I say I'm from Mary Hill.
because that matters. I think that matters, just in terms of what you do and how you're grounded in how you do your business with your family in the background and the people that matter to you in the background, making sure that you stay with your feet firmly planted on the ground. So I think we've got quite similar values, and I think that's why probably our working relationship has worked so well. I think we're very different in terms of how
we don't always agree.
We don't always agree. We sometimes fight, but not in a bad way.
But then we laugh.
That's fine. Exactly. I don't agree with you. Exactly. But I know I can say I don't agree with you, and you know
you're safe to
you know that you can say that you don't agree with me, you know. And I think having relationships like that in a more senior level, because I think I've said this before, people kind of look to you to have all the answers, and the diversity that we've created in the team means you've got a more chance of having the answers just by having different people. It's easy to you know, drift towards people that are like you. And I think from a leadership point of view, to notice where your personal or professional deficits are, and look for people who play to that, you know, they strengthen that. I think, I mean, Cam's Mrs. Data and I'm not Mrs. Data, but between the two of us, we, you know, we've worked that out really well, I think, just in terms of how we do that,
So how will you embed these behaviours with your teams and with peers, and how do you know they feel safe, well and heard at work, or reflecting on the past, I guess?
Yeah. No, I think...
You hand it over.
I think we've described a wee bit of how we do that, and I think how we've done it between us is engaging across the NMAP community and really making sure that it wasn't just your and mine and Pauline and Gillian's view of the world. Actually, we said, what does that need to look like? And we've spoken to teams right from when I got here in October 2022 and when you got here in July 23. We've talked to teams and said, actually, you know, what should that look like? Because it needed to fit for Forth Valley as well. It couldn't just be how we'd maybe done things in the past.
You can't lift it from another place. I think people assume that you can, but it's
I think you can
not at all.
See what you've done in other places and potentially grow and build and develop it, and I think that's what we've done.
I think we've been really thoughtful about recruitment, and you know, always considering what matters to us, what's the most important, and what we'll accept as well. You know, so it's not about just anyone being part of the team. It's about the right people that will fulfil, you know, the goals of the organisation, but also have that ability to create connection. I think if anything for me in the last 2 years, the connectedness of our team, our senior team, feels very strong, certainly in the next 6 months, year as I take over. Just reminding myself that's a reality in a few weeks' time. I think it's getting in amongst, you know, all the teams across the NMAP community and beyond, and how we can influence, you know, across the organisation in terms of how we do business, but also how we operate and how that connectedness creates something that's unique and special. You know, that we become a standout in NHS Scotland. That would be
absolutely.
We want to be that place that people want to come and work, and that certainly seems to be happening.
So definitely.
We'll continue to do that.
And I think that has been one of the things that I think that we've both done maybe differently from previously, is we've not focused on what it says on our badge. It doesn't matter to us, but for people that seemed to matter quite a lot. And I think I had this conversation with Aileen but it doesn't matter to you and I what it says on our badge, because we've got a job to do for the people of Forth Valley and the people who work in Forth Valley, and that has always been the thing that we've tried to focus on the most. And I think that once you forget what it says on your badge and you just go about doing your business, I think people warm to that and they connect with you on a personal and professional level rather than on a what it says on your badge level.
Indeed.
Because it doesn't matter.
I agree completely. And I think that has been the position here maybe for a period of time, that kind of hierarchical approach. And, you know, I don't think you connect with people unless you create that safety and warmth and, you know, the
Real
ability
connection,
to
real connection.
stop you in the corridor and say, how you doing today?
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
just natural connection and conversation with the people across the organisation and beyond.
And I think one of the things, it's important to show people as a leader in any organisation the human aspect of you, you know, and you don't want to, you know, put all of it on the table, but you want people to realise that you're a human, you're doing the best that you can, and you do make mistakes, and we've both been able to say, I didn't get that right, I could have got that could have been better, and just having that humility to be able to acknowledge, I could have got that better, I'm sorry about that, but we'll get it better the next time, and people go, oh, that's okay, that's quite refreshing, because it's okay to not know everything, it's okay to just be, you know, we're not busking it, because we know what we're doing, but actually to be vulnerable with people, I think, creates a different...
We don't have all the answers, and that's why we've got a team
that's
of
exactly
thousands of people that will have the answers, and it's
100%.
I think the sweet point is having the amount of connection that we're able to find the answers to things that we can't solve immediately, that we know who to go to, that they know who to connect with. So doing that has certainly helped us.
I think that's my question for you.
Is that your question? Is it? Or
I'm going to take it. I'm taking it anyway.
Take it, go. I didn't get a chance to read it.
That's fine. I'd read it. Thinking back to when you first came into post, what positive changes have you implemented to ensure your peers and team members feel safe, well and heard here in Forth Valley?
So I think some of the positive measures, so I'm a detail girl, so I like to get into the detail of like, how are we doing? Where are we at with various things? So whether that be, what's the state of our workforce? As in, when I say state, I mean, what is the baseline? Is it right and proper? Is it delivering what we need it to deliver? How safe are we? How does it feel to be a person that uses our services? What does the feedback look like? So that's kind of the probably big things that I've had quite a lot of involvement in over the last 2 years. I think what Francis and I have recognised, so we've carried out a workforce review and really get into the nitty gritty of, have we got this right? Because what we knew with absolute certainty, you know, it was well overdue in terms of review, just really looking at the detail, understanding the safety, but also taking the experience of people that perhaps used a service in a particular team or award to triangulate that and bring it together. And having those conversations with the teams really revealed where we hadn't got it right, but also where we really needed to invest. So I guess the workforce work has helped us provide confidence to the boards. We did have 100+ vacancies in the system, you know, in a critical part of the system, and that must have felt difficult for the team. So what we aimed to do was make that better for them, and that was always the drive. We've saved some money along the way, and that's great, but actually the main priority was the people and the safety of our patients and people who use the services.
Sustainable workforce.
Yeah.
And making sure the people that worked for Forth Valley understood what we were trying to do in Forth Valley. And I think connecting that all together, and you can get a supply of people to come in and do the work that our teams do, but actually we're not just looking for a supply, we're looking for people with the right skills, knowledge, ability, but values. And also that we then have people who are consistent. Look, we've got a bit more of a consistent approach to understanding what their message is. So I think particularly in the safe, well and heard, I think that's really important that we've got that the people who work for Forth Valley are invested in working here in Forth Valley for the people of Forth Valley. But making sure and that they get the professional benefit out of that as well, and I think we've still got work to do in that space, you know, in terms of making sure that we start to articulate those career pathways for people, that people understand what the options are for them, what opportunities there are, and I think our practice development team, I think, are doing a good job in that space to start to work that through. But I think I would agree. I think that's been a really, really strong piece for you, amongst many others. But that really just rebasing. Post-pandemic, rebasing the nursing workforce, I think, has been has been a real strength for you.
And Francis said earlier, you know, we're human beings too. Sometimes folk can have suspicions when you're starting to get into detail and thinking that we're going to make cuts or, you know, do something, you know, that's going to really impact them. But actually, the driving motivation was to make it better for them.
Yeah.
Because we have been on the shop floor, so I know what that looks like and feels like when it's not where it needs to be. So that gets me out of my bed in the morning. So I'll continue to do that.
It's a good motivation.
When Francis leaves me again.
For the second time.
For the second time.
We made sure that the workforce that was needed was the workforce that we got. We had to present loads of papers. We had to present loads of debates to the chief exec to say, you can't afford not to do this. Because we need Forth Valley nurses in Forth Valley to give that consistency, to create the right conditions
and grow the next
generation.
So many people going.
But to care for our patients, to make sure that our patients have got that, you know who's coming in, you know who's on the off duty. You create the teamwork, you create that environment.
Definitely. And you're starting to see that coming through the quality metrics as well. I mean, we've got the safety collaborative, which again is just simply put, bringing people together to learn and, you know, try and provide higher quality of care. And yeah, I think you can't do that unless you've got a stable workforce, particularly not a nursing workforce in an acute site. So,
and it all starts to join together. And I'd love to have in October 2022 pressed a button, it would all have been fine, but we needed to change quite a lot in order to be able to create the right conditions, both at a board level, the exec team, as well as the conditions on the site for people to understand what wasn't right and we needed to make it better. So all the clinical governance work that David and the medics have done on the acute site, the work that's been done in the partnerships, in prisons, across our whole estate to make sure that we understand what's not good enough and how are we going to make it better. So really ambitious aims around all of that. This is your other one as well after that one.
Oh right, she's organising me. I don't know what I'm going to do when she's away.
You'll be grand.
What initiatives have you developed or led during your time in your role that you are particularly proud of, and can you share a couple of examples?
So things that we've led, I think the NMAP development piece across where even before that, creating an NMAP community. Yes. There wasn't an NMAP community. There was the nursing directorate, midwifery ran in the women's and children's directorate, and when I got here, Pauline, who was the HP director, made it pretty clear to me that we needed to hear what our AHP colleagues had to offer in that space, and I think deliberately creating an NMAP directorate. I still argue that, you know, people say, oh, you're part of the nursing directorate. I don't know what the nursing directorate is. We're the NMAP directorate, so we've got responsibility for all nurses, midwives and AHPs. So I think that has been the first thing, and then creating the opportunities for those amazing NMAPs to come together and create a wee bit of magic just by working alongside each other, understanding similarities, understanding difference, recognising that difference and paying respect to that difference in terms of what each of those professions brings. And we are, I always get this wrong, we're greater than the sum of our parts. I always get that wrong, but collectively we're stronger than we are individually. Yeah, so I think that's really, that's probably been one of the things. The other thing, and I talked about this in a previous videos, is around being a bit of a catalyst for change in the executive team. I worked really hard in that space to create an environment where it was okay to challenge, it was okay to, you know, be continually questioning, is that right for the people of Forth Valley? Are we doing the best that we can for the people of Forth Valley? And although I found that personally and professionally really challenging, because I felt at times it was quite lonely for me being a singular voice in that space, but actually I did recognise that what I needed to do was the right thing, and that was to keep ploughing that furrow of trying to do the right thing for the people that we serve. I probably will say that about 10 times in this podcast because it matters hugely to me. It's again what gets me out of my bed. It matters to make a difference to the people we've got responsibility for, and that includes all of our staff as well. But again, that's still a work that we've got to keep going on. But there's lots to do.
Definitely.
I don't think that's 3, but I think it's enough.
That's fine. Okay. What advice would you share with me as I start my new role as Executive Director of Nursing? What's the key to creating a positive culture where the workforce across Forth Valley feels safe, well and heard? So
my advice to you is, you've got this. You know what you're doing. I think you're an amazing leader across the organisation, and the step up will be the next stretch for you. I think that's it's a fantastic opportunity for you professionally, but also bringing that talent back to Forth Valley, your talent back to Forth Valley, has been hugely rewarding for me to watch how you've grown and developed, because we worked together for a good bit of time. Knowing that what you bring is what Forth Valley needs, and not to be worried about that, just to acknowledge that what you bring will be right. You'll have people around you that will help you.
Lots.
Yeah, but you will have people around you that will help you and support you the way you've helped and supported me, so that's fantastic. You are an executive nurse director. It brings me personal and professional joy to see you getting this job. I could not have been prouder. But it's not about me, it's your achievement, and it's I will watch a wee bit from the sidelines, maybe via Facebook and connecting with you for a coffee, even though neither of us drink coffee. But just to see how I want to see you flourish into that next phase of your career, and I think for me that would be just be you. That would be my sound advice.
That's what I'm going to do.
Be you, because you is great. That's enough. That's all you need to know. And what was the next part?
I don't know if I'll be able to read the next part.
What's the key to creating?
The key to creating a positive culture where the workforce across Forth Valley feels safe, well and heard.
I think we've talked about it.
Yeah.
It's the connection, it's the personal touch, it's the walking the walk, it's the connecting with people through the work that they do, and you hearing the work that they do and being able to articulate that up to the board, and being really, really connected between the board job that you have to the job on the ground of the staff who've got their hands on our patients, who are supporting our patients and our service users across the organisation, and making sure that you keep that as real as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
Because it would be easy to drift, it would be easy to lose connection from it. But I know you won't do that.
Yeah, I'm too nosy.
She's too nosy. She's too nosy.
Right, see what's going on.
But just being able to do that in a really, really kind and caring way.
I'm looking forward to that. I've not had as much chance to be clinical while I've been kind of sorting some stuff and fixing some things over the last couple of years. But I'm looking forward to having a bit more space to be able to do that. I'm looking forward to going and doing a shift the way Frances does, and connecting with some of the old faces that I know and some of the new. So I'm looking forward to that. That will be really important to me to connect back in. I'm a wee bit rusty, but I'm sure I'll be fine.
You'll shine up. You'll shine up fine. And I think the interesting thing in that, Karen, is the impact that has on individual staff. And I think I say to my husband, it soars my soul when I put my uniform on and do my clinical shift on a monthly basis, because it does. Because you connect with staff and they think they're excited by what it says on your badge, and then you make it pretty obvious really, really early on that it doesn't actually matter what it says on your badge, because we're both nurses or we're both clinicians, and we're doing our thing together. And putting them at ease really, really early, because they get anxious with what it says on your badge.
Yeah, indeed.
But putting them at ease really, really early, just to say, it's all right, we'll be fine, we'll have a great shift. And that you cannot buy what you learn from the staff, because they very, very quickly forget what it says in your badge because you're wearing your cornflower blue uniform.
You're an extra pair of hands that day.
You're an extra pair of hands that day, yeah, absolutely. But they've got a huge amount of comfort in the fact that you're doing the job with them. And also they'll tell you things that I said, there's often too many filters between us in the jobs that we do. Getting to us. So actually if you're at the coalface, hands-on patients, there's no filters, it's just you and that other nurse or you and that other dietitian or you and that other midwife, you know, doing what you do and being okay with the vulnerability of not knowing it all.
Yeah, indeed.
Because you're never going to know it all in those scenarios.
She says this to make she knows I like to know the detail. Even in the clinical role I had previously.
Yeah, because you were an advanced nurse practitioner, and that's really hard when you put yourself into clinical situations where there is a level of vulnerability of, I don't know all of this. So what you do in that is you open your ears and you talk to people and you say, tell me about it, and they tell, because they want to tell you about their service.
And you want them to be comfortable enough, you know, to tell them how great they are.
Yeah.
Tell us how great they are, and what can we help with. And it's always astounded me when I've come back, when I worked in Monklands Hospital, it's quite a connected community, and you know, the guys, if they'd something to say, and they'll laugh when I say guys, because I used to call them guys, and they would tell me everything, you know, if there was a problem or if there's something I really needed to know about, you know, they'd come up and see me, and it was very open. But 2 years ago when I come back here, I was like, oh, just phone me in Teams, and people were like, can I really phone you?
I know.
Of course you can. You know, it's fine to pick up the phone or email me, or is there anything I can do, or let me go and find that out and I'll come back to you. So that's been nice to just, you know, create those connections through. So looking forward to doing more of that.
It asks us to think of a time where in our career where we didn't turn up as the best version of ourselves and perhaps acted away with a colleague that you later wished you hadn't.
Yes. So I think during the pandemic would be the place I would go to. And actually that time has taught me so much about myself and how, if I'm reactive, the impact that has on other people. Because that was an incredibly tough time when I reflect back on it. You know, in the moment you think, oh, we've got this, we're doing a good job. But then you reflect back about the 14-hour days, and my mum was incredibly unwell over that period and actually was admitted to my site on a frequent basis. So she'd be down in the renal unit while I was dealing with, you know, major issues. So reflecting back on that, I probably wasn't the best version of myself at various points. But actually I've spent a great deal of time walking through that. And I often think about some of the staff that maybe got me when I was really, you know, busy and overwhelmed and feeling an overwhelming sense of responsibility, particularly when we had the first COVID patients arriving, because we had the regional infectious diseases unit and creating a new ICU footprint or an HDU and our infectious diseases unit, and staff hadn't had the competency to do that previously, so we had very quickly had to adapt and get them to a particular place. And
that's at pace, Karen, isn't it?
Real pace, and heavy on my heart when I started to look out and see the impact on the staff, on people that I really cared about, that had developed, you know, close working relationships and working friendships with them, the impact it had on them. And I reflect back on myself, and probably at times I was definitely not the best version of myself, quite reactive, wanting to get stuff done, wanting to be the best, wanting to make sure we do everything right. And often the circumstances around the pandemic, we'd get information really late on a Friday afternoon, but we had to implement that in the next hour or two because it was such a critical change. And I think lots of people experienced that. But Frances has said, I think, I mean, it is stuck in my head so much. She spoke to me about, have you ever thought about your internal boardroom? I was like, what do you mean, my internal boardroom? And she spoke about, like, think about your boardroom. So here is your work, and here is your mum, there's your daughters you're caring for, there's your, you know, and you start to add up all the different aspects of your life and how that can impact you. You know, I think we were pushed to the limits, and it definitely had an impact on me. But I took incredible learning from that. And now when I remember that boardroom thing, I go, right, how many things have I got going on in my boardroom this week? Right, okay, I need to do. And it actually helps me just rationalise and prioritise. But I think I'm quite proud of how I've not changed who I am, but I think even at my age, I feel as if I've matured a great deal over the last kind of 7 years and learned so much through a horrific circumstance, but actually I took loads from that. And I often think, I wonder what people thought of me in those moments. You know, could I have been better? Yes, I probably could have been. And this is the version of me now that is that better person. So that's super honest. So yeah, that's what I've been.
And also, we were under a huge amount of pressure at that time, you know, so I think I would cut you a bit of slack.
Aye,
you know
they probably would as well. I mean, I don't. Aye.
And I think you were really, really well
But
received.
self-critical.
Yeah, no. And also, and I think that's a real asset as a leader, that opportunity to reflect, the opportunity to pause and just say, could I have done that a bit better?
Yeah, absolutely.
And talk to the people around you. In that set of circumstances, they needed you to be in charge. They needed you to be, because that everybody was looking to you to say, what we're doing, what we're doing, and you go, we're doing this, and this, because that's what they needed at that time. And that was not your natural style.
No.
So you flexed your natural style, and now you're back to where you were. You needed to get into a command and control scenario because of the circumstances, and you just needed things done. And now you flex back to your natural leadership state. So I think just cutting yourself a bit of slack on that.
I did buy a puppy in a hot tub that seemed to help me through COVID. So,
oh well, that's fine then.
So I made some reactive decisions around purchases that my husband was like, what are you doing? But actually I've still got the puppy. She's like my best friend. She's my wee therapy pet. You know, if I've had a bad day, I can just sit with her for 5 minutes. And I think back to, you know, the pandemic times where I would just sit with her at night when I get in at 9 o'clock at night.
I know.
And actually,
crazy times.
She's in the boardroom as well, I guess.
She is in the boardroom with Willow. She is, absolutely.
Yeah. So I've still got the hot tub. It's not working.
Story of our life.
Oh, sorry, a relic from pandemic.
In terms of mine, it's interesting. It's again quite similar. I had a really fantastic colleague who was an ED consultant, a guy called Ian McLaren.
Oh, aye.
In Monklands as well, and I was with him one day and with a service manager colleague, and I was saying to the service manager colleague, right, we need to do this, we need to do that, and we need to do that, all like that, you know. So Ian phoned me the next day and he said, have you got 10 minutes? And I said, yeah, I've got 10 minutes, yeah, no problem, I'll come down. Are you in your office? Yep. So I went down to his office and he said to me, how do you think that felt for that person yesterday? I hadn't really thought about it. Now this must be 15 maybe years ago. How do you think it felt? And I said, I never really thought about how it felt for that individual. He said, what if when you put your foot to the floor, you only get to 30 miles an hour or 40 miles an hour and you're driving at 100 miles an hour? And I've actually had this conversation with somebody today. It's at least 15 years ago since Ian had this conversation, and I can viscerally remember it exactly the same. And I got upset and I was crying, and he said to me, the only reason I'm having this conversation is because you're good and it matters, and I'm giving you this feedback because I know you'll take it on board. And I remember the generosity of his feedback, and that just what's the impact of me on others. And that became a thing that I wanted to make sure that wasn't a negative impact. Even when I had difficult things to do, even when I had difficult things to say, I did them with kindness, and I did them in a way that people did not walk away as casualties of me, because that really, really hit me that day. And I was personally, you know, rocked by it, and I'll never ever be able to thank Ian enough for that, because he gave me an insight into me, but also with the kindness of saying, you're good at what you do, I like you, you will make a difference, but you need to make sure that you do it with you know, holding less pace, holding people's hand, and also not making the other person feel vulnerable. And that was a real message for me. So I think that's where I didn't turn up at my best, but I made sure I got better as a result of Ian's feedback. He gave me a massive gift that day that I could not have bought with all the money I ever earned, which was somebody to say, just be you, but be aware of the impact of you on other people. And he was amazing. I met him in Loch Lomond about a year and a half ago, and I just gave him the biggest hug. And my husband knows the story. Karen knows the story. But I'm saying to my husband, that Martin, this is Ian, and Martin's like, oh, I remember that. I remember you telling me about that, and I gave him a massive hug, and I said, I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. And he's like, oh, it's fine. You were worth it. You were worth it. That kind of a conversation. But he was great. Yeah. He was amazing. He did it with kindness, didn't he? He did it with kindness. I mean, I was greeting my eyes out. I absolutely was greeting my eyes out because it mattered to him. He took the time. I mattered to him, and I was able to see that I mattered to him. He was telling me something that felt unpalatable for me at the time, but he did it with care, and he did it with compassion. He did it because I mattered to him, and that has been an opportunity for me to grow. So that was amazing. Two more questions. Oh. Karen's hidden one then. That one, Karen.
Oh.
Right.
Oh.
I'm not sure she's liking that one.
What single piece of advice?
Well,
was it this one first?
That's number 9 first.
So what's been the proudest moment in your career? That's for both of you.
I'll go first.
You go first.
Is that all right?
I'll listen and think.
So there's lots of really, really amazing moments. I remember, it all relates back to family, doesn't it? Isn't it? It all relates back to family. So I got an honorary professorship from the University of Glasgow Caledonian University. I was absolutely delighted because I'd done my degree there, I did my MBA there, and it was such an honour, really massive. Again, for this wee lassie for Lanarkshire, just, being humbled by that. I was hugely, hugely delighted, and I went to my wee mum, who was still alive at the time, and I said, Mum, they've given me an honorary professorship at Glasgow Caledonian University. And I thought she would just be totally overwhelmed, and that is amazing, Pet, and you've done so well, and I'm delighted for you. And she said, do you get any extra money for that, love? And I said, no. She says, well, what's the point in that then? I thought, oh my God. I was so proud of just this average kid, middle set, not top set kid, who, from a big family of 6 kids in East Kilbride, getting this honorary professorship, and my mum brought me down to earth like that. You're not getting any extra money for that. But I was incredibly proud to have got that, and then to get this job, I think, for me, is the crowning glory in my career. And just I think back to myself as a student nurse, and you never had aspirations to be an executive nurse director. You just wanted to do well. You wanted to be the best that you could be. And I've wobbled along the road to getting to this job. And you make mistakes, don't you, Karen? And you want to make sure that you do the best that you possibly can. So getting to this job and my honorary professorships has been massive. But also still being able to balance it with my family and making sure that my work was a part of my life and was not my life, and I've kept up my pursuits and everything like that. So to be able to do that in these types of jobs, and I would urge anybody who's got aspirations to make sure that your work is a part of your life and not your life, not your whole life, and really balance that really well. That doesn't mean to say you're not doing your job well. It just means to say you've got perspective, and you come to your job, you come to the work fresher, with energy and with the passion to do the best that you possibly can. Whereas if all you're doing is work, I think you get a bit jaded with those 14-hour days and just no sleep and worry, and it doesn't get the best out of you, I would say. So I think those are my proudest moments. I think I gave 2 there.
I was trying to think as you were speaking. There's so many moments, isn't there? It's hard to pin it down to one, but I'll pin it down to one theme. So what makes me incredibly proud is when I see folk that I have influenced in terms of helping them get to where they want to be. That's the best feeling in the whole wide world. So you can't buy that. I remember, so I was really lucky. I had a job in Healthcare Improvement Scotland, and it was National Clinical Lead for Improving Care for Older People, quite broad. So that programme I was incredibly proud of. and with the team in HIS, we look to transform care for older people across acute hospitals, and I think we did quite well and started the foundation of the work that's still alive now. But I get the chance to be a nurse consultant up in NHS 5 for a wee while. I mean, it's quite far away. The dread of the commute was probably the negative, but the positive was meeting a chap called Alex, and he was a band 5. He worked in the emergency department, and I heard him at the back of me hand over a patient in the acute medical unit. And I was like, who is that? Like, just his professionalism, his detail, the respect, it oozed out of him. And I was warned not to try and steal him, is what the senior charge nurse said to me. But eventually we had created some advanced nurse practitioner trainee posts in the frailty team, and Alex applied and got the post. And long story short, he is now an advanced clinical practitioner in Monkland's emergency department.
So we stole him again?
We kind of stole him a wee bit again. And he represents Scotland around ACPs, and just watching that young person, come through and an incredible advocate for patients and learning and teaching others. I kind of follow Alex's career in the background, and I don't doubt for a second he will go really far and really influence things in a positive way. So that is heartwarming, and I've got multiple examples of people like him. That's the best feeling in the whole wide world.
I would agree.
And sometimes, folks don't, maybe need a different route to get to where they want to be, but I see, certainly when I move into Francis's role, that role model, being able to support people, understand where they want to get to, and what can I do to help you get there, and what can the wider team help.
I think that's the best part of the job.
It is the best part. So I'm proud of the people that have, hopefully have had a bit of positivity from me and support to get to where they want to be. Because ultimately that affects patients at the end of the day. So,
and I think it's our job to bring on the next generation of leaders across NHS Scotland. So I don't just do it in my own boards. If people have been for an interview in this board and they don't get the job, I make sure that I do that follow-up with them, because actually we've got to create those leaders who are going to be there for the next generation and the next. And people say, oh, thanks so much. You don't need to thank me, this is my job. I've got a responsibility to make sure that the next generation of NHS Scotland leaders are ready.
Absolutely.
And that's it's not written anywhere.
No.
But it matters a huge amount to us.
And I read a thing to say this is our moment in the sun, but there's other people that will come behind us, so we need to create the conditions for them to be able to step in. Yeah. And I think what Francis has done over the last 3 years is create real legacy in this board, and no pressure to continue that. So I'll do all I can. I'll do all I can to get it there. But yeah, people are important. That's what matters the most.
Absolutely. Right, the final one.
Oh, final one.
What single piece of advice would you share with your student nurse self as she starts her career?
So that's an interesting question for me. So I've got a daughter who is a nurse, and I've got 2 nieces who are just about to graduate, so I've definitely done my bit for the workforce. My advice to them, which would be the advice to me, is get yourself organised early. Like, what's your aspirations? Have your career plan. I probably had a career plan, to be fair, but get your career plan in place. Don't ever view yourself as, I'm just a nurse that's just graduated. No, you're a registered nurse who's got a career in front of you. So start to think through, what does that look like? Go and extend your skills, go and learn more. Not just about nursing, midwifery and the AHP job families, but actually leadership skills and, thinking through improvement science is a big area that I love. So how we can broaden our horizons, and that nursing is for me, because I'm a nurse, is a career that has so many aspects to it that the world's your oyster. So it does make me angry a wee bit when I see the media portraying nursing as, a difficult career and the pay is rubbish. Well, actually, there's a whole lot more to it. It's just we need to get better at getting that out there. So I think the advice would be develop early, have career aspirations, and you don't have to do 10 years before you can move on. There's lots of opportunity, and hopefully with a leader like me around, I'll be able to open those doors for people. So yeah,
I think I would agree. What single piece of advice would I share with my student nurse self? I suppose my advice to me would be being you is okay.
Yes, you don't have to be somebody else.
You being yourself is enough. You don't need to pretend to be something else. There were points in my career that I tried to be everything to all people, and being me wasn't right for some people, but it was right for other people, and I just needed to find my people. So that, to be okay, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Indeed.
And in fact, when I came here, I said that to Kathy Cowan. I said, I might not be your cup of tea. Before I was interviewed, I went to meet her and I said, here's what I can bring. I can bring this, 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 this and this, but I might not be your cup of tea. So that's up to you. Knowing your own self-worth, knowing what you bring to the party. And that took me a long time to understand that what I bring is good enough.
Absolutely.
It's good enough and it can make a difference. But internally, my narrative was, you need to be better, you need to be... Yes, you do get better, you gain different skills, you gain different knowledge, but the core person, back to our first conversation around values, that core person, it's enough. And not to fight that, but to embrace it. Because you might be the diversity that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You might be the diverse view that nobody else is giving, that can actually strengthen how we do things, and that is absolutely a gift, to be able to bring something different to a conversation, because lots of people can all say the same things, but actually to bring, a different perspective that just broadens it even further and makes it even better, and you go, okay. But it took me years to believe that what I brought was enough, and that's what I would say to my student nurse self. Really, you're enough. Yeah. Right, okay, we're nearly in tears, the two of us. But I just want to say I wish you all the best. I think it'll be great. I think you'll be amazing.
I don't know how I've not cried.
I know, and I don't.
I'm normally a crier.
She has tiny tears, we call her tiny tears. But I do think, passing over the baton, the metaphorical baton, that you will be a fantastic executive nurse director for NHS Forth Valley, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you, Frances.